the Broncos, and I don't think the fans want to remember last year too much. Look, they did improve from the year before. The only way was basically up for them, but geez, they were basically penned in for a final spot, and somehow found a way not to make it. And you sort of got to laugh because it was just in that situation, it was almost impossible for him to do it. But in the back of, I think, most fans' mind, we sort of could see it coming. It was like a crash course, and it was crazy to watch. But you just sort of knew every week, oh yeah, they'll lose this. They'll find a way to lose it. I think there was a couple of games that they were up by like 10 or 12 with like maybe 10 to go, and you just knew you were like, nah, they'll lose this. They'll find something to do here, and they'll lose this. So they've got some interesting games. They've got Reece Walsh coming from the Warriors. They've got Jesse Arthur is back from the Warriors after his loan spell. Jock Madden, for mine, a young prospect, could be a nice signing for him in the future. He's screaming for an opportunity, for a chance, but I don't know if he'll get in the way of Ezra Mann or Reynolds at the moment there. But and then Tapau, obviously last week signed with him, but they've lost sort of some players as well. Where are you at with the Broncos? Are you thinking they can finally right their wrongs and edge into the 8, or is there a possibility? They're pretty much sitting halfway, so they're either going up or down. So
I think for me, it's a hat trick of downward slopes, in
yeah,
terms of Manly, Dragons, now the Broncos, just culture, just everything of the culture at the moment just seems in
yeah,
tatters. And then there's a couple of factors we go, now hang on a second. These, like, you obviously Reynolds was the big inclusion last year, and that's why I always have hesitations. Like, God, I value Reynolds a lot, and also that he wanted to go there. Like, obviously, you do choose to sign your contract. Like, I'm not surprised anyone there, but he took on the challenge. He knew that there was going to be challenges, and we did see last year he played some fantastic footy. You also got to put in the fact that though he does have injury concerns, as well. So I am thinking the downward slope. I think there's some young players that need that real leadership, and obviously they were nicknamed the Baby Broncos for a long time. Lots of Jordan Ricky really needs to prove himself.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so with Jordan Ricky is a fantastic talent. Why I'm just giving an insight. He was over, so not too far from where I live. So I was living over in Christchurch where he was playing footy. Freak of a talent. Like, he was like one of those guys. He just stood out. But and like you just see stuff like him doing chip kicks and showing off all the skills and all that. And yeah, and then I think sometimes he's relied on that natural brilliance a bit, and he's learning a bit about himself and what it takes to be that role player, second rower. I feel like he did make strides last year, but he was playing against guys like Griffin Neame, who's a
yeah.
good mate of mine that playing the Cowboys and that. But yeah, so I really want Jordan Ricky to succeed. So hopefully, and with Reynolds next to him, but he's just another example. Obviously, Cobbo needs to bounce back from his comments. I will say, if the Broncos surprise us or surprise myself, and think, right, they make the 8, I reckon the big reason will be this Paddy Carrigan is special. I think he is a fantastic leader. We saw him at Origin, and I actually think the most significant thing was we saw when he got injured at the end of last year. Is no coincidence that the drop off happened
Yeah.
when he got injured. So for me, or suspension, wasn't it? Was
Yeah.
it injury? Yeah.
No, no, yeah, it was suspension. It was.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, like, I'm putting my eggs in both baskets here,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think he will be that guy that we look at.
I feel like that's appropriate comment there with the Broncos is putting sort of eggs in both baskets, because that's sort of where I'm at with them is that I, I'll have a post out next week for the page, but a little sneak peek into it is we ran the polls and that for teams where they'll finish on the ladder, etc. And the League of Interest fans actually put the Broncos to come eighth, so they think they'll actually make the 8 this year and right the wrongs of last year. And I've sort of got them on that 8th to maybe 11th,
Yeah.
and in that sort of that bracket. And
I've got them bottom 4 at the moment.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
At a real, like, haven't really sat down and
Yeah,
mapped it out, but I've got a bottom 4 feel.
but I can also see where you're coming from with that, because for mine, and I think about it, the culture for mine, I'm with you. It's shocking. It's shit house, to be honest. It's you can't have these players coming out, and it's not the first time saying these comments about their coach. Like the successful clubs, we have not heard that ever. We don't hear players coming out, like any Penrith players coming out saying about Cleary. We don't hear Storm players coming out saying about Bellamy, and they're clubs that hold themselves at the highest of regards. And the Broncos were this 10, 15 years ago, but they've slowly let themselves slip. So now that the players are allowed to basically do this stuff, like 10, 15 years ago, you can't sit there and say players like Lockyer and that would have gone on a podcast if they were around back then and said those sorts of comments because they would have known that the punishments there would have been severe. And instead of punishments from, say, Cobbo's point of view, the club basically has come out and enforced players to front media to say they like the coach and they back the coach. We all know why they're doing that because the club's come out and said, put it out there and show you back the coach. It's for mine, I would have preferred the club to come out and say, we're aware of the comments made. Cobbo's been punished in-house by the club. So the matter's been resolved. We don't need to hear the sort of the fake baloney that comes out of clubs. We all know it now and push the coach. I think massive pressure now on Walters because if they don't start well, there's a few teams we keep saying this about, but this one, they're crucial because they're coming off losing, 8 out of the last 9 or 10 or something last year. And then this year, if they start losing at the start, that's going to be a big losing streak. As much as the Broncos love him, you'll have to part ways with him because you can't keep that losing going, knowing that these comments are slowly leaking out by players. Everyone will start thinking there's got to be something wrong here.